Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We have got a special guest here that I am very excited to have with us today because this girl, she's done a lot of things and she knows her stuff. Today we have Dr. Kristina Dobyns. She is an integrative recovery coach and educator specializing in binge eating and food addiction recovery through animal-based nutrition, embodiment, and mindfulness. She holds a PhD in somatic psychology, a master's in exercise science, and is a registered somatic movement therapist, a certified nutritional therapy practitioner, and mindfulness-based relapse prevention facilitator. She teaches courses, workshops, and does private coaching through Beyond Binge Eating and shares free education on YouTube. First of all, thank you for being here. That means a lot to me. We had a wonderful conversation before on your podcast, which is Beyond Binge Eating. And so I was so honored to have her back. And let me just say, I love that title, Beyond Binge Eating, because there is life beyond that, right? I think that title says so much. And that's where we want to get everyone to, because people that are in that, we know what the pain is like, and we want to pull them out of that place because we don't want anybody to walk in the depths of hell if they don't have to, and they don't have to. And we just want to take people gently by the hand and lead them out saying, come on, man, I've got a better way. Follow me. So let's start by, if you don't mind, just kind of share your story. What got you interested in this? What led you here to where you're in this seat today? Something must have transpired big in your life to get you to this place and this field of interest. So I will stop talking and I can't wait to hear more about you.
Oh, thanks so much, Paige. I really appreciate you having me on your podcast. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here chatting with you right now. How am I here is really it's it's been like a hugely personal thing, right? I think I started I don't even remember, my memory is bad. I don't even remember when I started binging, but I'm gonna guess I was, maybe 14 or 13 or maybe even younger than that. I don't really, maybe I was 12, 11. I don't really remember.
Wow.
I was a latch,
Young,
yeah, I
young.
was young. I was a latchkey kid. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I would just come home by myself after school. And I remember, just downing like a whole bag of chips in front of the TV. And it's just kind of,
Mm-hmm.
I think I was using food to sort of maybe cope with loneliness or something. And I also started drinking really early. I started drinking around age 12 and also started doing drugs around that time too.
Wow.
And they oftentimes went together, it's kind
Sure.
of like, doing drugs. And then when you're coming off, then it's like, binging, like that was just so common. Anyone who's drank a lot, that oftentimes it ends up in a pile of cheeseburgers or I don't know, some
Right.
sort of someone's, eating all this stuff that you
Mm-hmm.
hadn't anticipated. And that's just kind of part of what happens. Um, and I think it was around age 19 that I figured out that I had an eating disorder. And I was telling my boyfriend, like, I have a problem. Like, I have a real problem here. Like, I cannot stop. And I started going to therapy around that time. But therapy just even despite all my intentions and all the therapy, I just kept on binging. And later on, I ended up stopping drinking and doing drugs completely. And yet the binging was as bad as ever,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it was just bad. It just dominated my whole life. It
Yeah.
was like, it came to that point where it's like, all I wanted to do, I'd wake up and be like, I'm not going to binge today. Today is going to be a different day. I'm going to feel my emotions today
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
something. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to not binge today. But then the nighttime would come so predictably, and there I would be, going to the store, buying all the stuff, eating all the stuff, and like feeling so much regret and self-hatred and physical discomfort. And then the next day would be the same type of thing. And it was just like this dreadful Groundhog's Day. So that those of us who've had these sort of issues, we get it. And I know that you get it because you talked about in the moment
Yeah.
in the just momentarily ago, like, oh, the hell that this is,
Yeah.
right? The hell. And yeah, I'd say that in 2020, it pretty much came to a head because of many reasons, including the fact my eating disorder was completely out of control. That's when my mother died, and I just felt like
Wow.
incredible grief. And then there was a pandemic. So I just felt like so much grief and just felt quite suicidal that I was just like, you know, I'm really struggling here, and
Mm-hmm.
this eating disorder is really making life not fun and not like
Mm-hmm.
something I want to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up, you know, a lot of things started changing. Like I went to residential. I really tried to rethink everything that I thought that I knew. I decided to, I really kind of interpreted, I noticed that my experience with the binging was a disconnect between my mind and body. Like my mind is saying, hey, I don't want to binge. I'm not going to binge. But then it felt like my body was just kind of like doing something completely different, something like inexplicable, like something I'm like so mysterious. It was like this other thing would take over my body. And so I
Mm-hmm.
felt this profound disconnect between mind and body and wanted to see if I could learn anything about how to bridge that gap. And so I decided to go back to school and pursue a doctorate in somatic psychology, which would be able to where I would be able to study embodiment in my in my hopes would be not only academically but experientially
Right.
work on embodiment. And yeah, I mean a lot of things changed. I started actually feeling like compassion from my time in residential where someone modeled to me compassion. I was actually able to like experience it and make that my own to embody that. I started working with a food addiction recovery coach that helped me to, understand that my draw towards abstinence and so forth was actually not disordered, but actually helpful for people like me. And there's a lot of things that have shifted, but my life has completely changed to where it was before, where it was like my whole life felt constrained and dominated by the binge eating and the food
Oh,
addiction and
totally.
all that. Yeah, so yeah, I guess, where I am today is basically because I feel a sense of service and a sense of like wanting
Yeah.
to get the message out to bring hope to people because if I can live a different life, then other people can. Because I swear to you, like this was my entire life and it was completely messed up, and that went on for, yeah, like 25 years or something like that. And like,
Yeah.
if I can change, anyone can change. And so that was my thought is like, if I ever come to the other side, God help me. If I ever do, like, I want to help others. And so, yeah, so then I started a podcast and you know yeah, different, do courses and workshops and coaching and stuff like that, but it's all because I want people to know that it is possible to change even if you've been doing the same crap for a long time. It's still possible to change.
Yeah, I so many questions already. And first of all, let me just applaud you on, I know how it feels as far as once you see the light, nothing like can hold you back from wanting to share that with other people, right? You know what it's like to suffer, and the last thing you want to do is see one person suffer one more minute
Right.
longer than they have to. It's painful. It's almost like you feel the pain yourself when you see other people in that place. So I really applaud you for being willing to share your experience and these tender moments with us because someone that's listening out there today, you're going to change their life.
Thank
If
you.
you don't mind, I would love to ask you, was your healing from the binging, was it like a dimmer switch or a light bulb? Did you have one specific light bulb moment, or was it just a slowly over time of pulling out of it? What was the main thing that helped sh move the needle for you, shift the tide?
Right. That's a really good question, Paige. And I think for me, it was more like the dimming. It wasn't like an immediate thing, even though I
Yeah.
had so desperately wanted that. I love those messages of like, I was healed overnight or something. But
Hallelujah.
like, I know, like, oh my God, I believe that's possible. But that wasn't my experience. My experience was it
Hmm.
kind of faded. And I think there was a series of things that kind of moved the needle. And they
Hmm.
all, yeah, I think that they all really contributed. I think one thing importantly for me was the nutrition. Working with that food addiction coach who supported me in my nutrition, which is now um, largely animal based slash keto carnivore type of thing. And at the time that I was working with her, I was also doing like weighed and measured meals, and I think just like the support around that was really monumental because it created a mindset shift. Like it was someone giving me permission to be who I wanted to be, to do what I wanted to do, and not to force me to be someone different than what I was, which I felt was generally what was happening as I was going to treatment for my eating disorder, working, doing, the therapy, the IOP, the residential, like, the registered dietitians, they would all be like, want me to do moderation and have me eat junk food every day, like as part of the plan and stuff. And I'd be like, I'm doing this. It doesn't feel right. I'm still binging. But with, this food addiction coach who was supporting me in this way, she's like, no, it's totally fine. And I'm like, thank God. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like
Uh-huh.
this feels so much better. And like,
Hmm.
why is the standard to be like, oh, we should definitely be eating, ice cream and
Yeah.
whatever these things every
Why?
day,
Yeah.
And so when I shifted to being like, no, it's totally fine for me to like not eat junk food every day, like it helped me to like just like ground myself and to be like, I am fine. Like, I don't need to try to moderate this junk food. Like, I'm fine as I am, right? So it gave me confidence in myself, which was a big shift. And then not only that, but the actual nutritional content of what was consuming, I think helped me to, optimize my brain function because I was, eating very healthy, nutrient-dense food. So that was something that really helped me was that change in nutrition. And then also, a shift in compassion, and that I told you that sort of developed starting at my time in residential, where it was, a bunch of women all going through, crises, different mental health and whatever sort of conditions. And I remember this one girl, she had like kind of like a revelation in one of our groups, and she's like, can I have like this, like the little girl, the little girl, however old she is, that she started these behaviors, right? And then you just grow, you get older, and now here we are now, we're
Hmm.
older, but it was that little girl that
Right.
started doing the things that didn't have the knowledge and experience and the skills that we have. So, if I right now am just starting to develop awareness of the ways in which I want to change,
Yeah.
can I have compassion for the little girl that started it?
Right.
And that
Right.
to me was just that was I don't know, just something about it landed for me for the first time ever because before that compassion was just a word, right?
Right.
But then it started to be like I actually I can give, the younger Christina who started, for example, maybe binging as a latchkey kid and she didn't know any
Right.
better. Like if I can have
Hmm.
compassion for, can I have compassion for her, instead of,
Totally.
yeah. So I felt like that was really helpful. Like this kind of like kindness type of thing, like a sort of anti-perfectionism, like anti-harshness, but just like a little bit of a softening. Because generally I've been like a really hard type of ambitious go-getter type person, and like I started to try to shift it to be like, can I soften? So
Hmm.
that I think really helped. And then making really a third thing is like making like a lot of effort to attune to my body and like emotional state and that sort of thing. And it has been like an ongoing process. But
Hmm.
I would say really when I started my PhD program, they actually do a lot of things together. Like, we had like practicum type classes where we're like, all doing, being guided in meditations and embodiment practices and different sort of things. And so every semester we would have these these practices. And so that really helped me to attune to a level that I had never attuned to before because they're asking you some weird stuff. They're like, become aware of your organs and your cells and your liver and parts of your body that are inside of yourself. You're like, what? How do I attune to my lymphatic system? But like
Yeah.
even just engaging the questions inspires you to go further than what you normally
Hmm.
do. And so I was, really starting to work on my body awareness, my nervous system. And through my PhD program, I ended up coming across sensory tools, sensory regulation, which is what I did my dissertation on. And so, just becoming aware of how I can use my senses and different sensory tools to regulate my nervous system, that has been really helpful because before that, I was only like aware of more cognitive strategies, because that's like what the norm is cognitive strategies. And I'm totally happy to talk about this later. But yeah, normally it's like cognitive strategies, but like once I started getting into the body more, that felt more helpful for me. And the last thing that I just want to share as far as like what moved the needle for me was really working on urge management, like urges to
Mm,
engage in, binge eating or reaching for sugar or like whatever. Just getting a more solid understanding of urges and how to manage them, which also goes
hmm.
in line with what I was just saying as far as sensory tools. So I think that those four things really helped me. And then I was also doing other things too. I've also going to therapy, exercising, paying attention to my circadian rhythm. But I'd say those four things, I would say those are kind of the things that were newish and that made a shift, and that I really recommend anyone in recovery, if they're not achieving the recovery that they are, or they feel like they're doing everything and they're still not moving forward, just maybe take a look at some of those tools or see how they could incorporate them and see if it makes a difference for them.
Hmm. Have you ever worked with internal family systems at all?
I mean, a little, but
A
I've done
little.
it for myself.
That's
Yeah,
what
I
I
think
was,
it's
sorry.
interesting. No, it's okay. I know that Susan Pierce Thompson does, has some stuff. I think she co-authored a book with someone about food
Oh,
addiction and internal family systems, and it is interesting. Yeah.
yeah. I was just thinking about that 12-year-old little girl. If
Oh
you've ever
yeah.
had a chance to go back and say anything to her, get down on your knees and look her in the eye, and what would you have said to her? And the reason I ask you that, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, not to be too personal, but so many people listening, if you could just go back and tell that younger child, still at 12, you're just a child. Even in your
Yeah.
teens, you're still just a children making these adult decisions. If that compassion component is so monumental in moving forward, I just was curious what that relationship looked like with that 12-year-old little girl. Up to you if you want to speak to that or not.
Yeah, I mean, I have done a little bit of inner child work on a few separate occasions, and it felt a little like a reach for me. Like
Okay.
I went through it, um, and I gave it my all, but yeah, it didn't feel like that was a huge thing for me.
Yeah. I'm grateful you brought that point up too, because in recovery, we can't fit square pegs into round holes, right?
Yes.
So even like at Real Food Recovery, we don't have a nutrition plan that here's the printout of what you're going to eat, because a lot of times when people sign up, they're okay, what's the food plan?
Right.
Where's the sheet? Where's the columns? What time of day? No, 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 no. We just do single ingredient food, and it would behoove me to tell you what your body is going to respond to, and what you like and what you don't like, because what works for me may not work for you. Okay, okay, but where's the plan? And so it takes a while for people. There's no golden ticket. There's no one perfect way, and everybody has to find what works for them. And not only do we mean that for the food plan, but we also mean that for what recovery looks like too, and what tools for Kristina or for Paige work. will not be the ones that speak to everyone. And some people, absolutely, IFS has been a game changer for them and
Yes.
totally shifted. And I do love that compassion piece. And I do love the recognition of not being hard on a child that's trying to make these big life decisions. You had said you were a latchkey person, and I'm sure you had a lot of feelings. Maybe I could even stop there with you had mentioned about feelings, and once you start dealing with your emotions, then food issues might come up even more. Why do you think feelings are so scary? And why do you think we run from those instead of face them? And then they turn into mountains instead of molehills versus just looking at them dead on and going, okay, this is what I'm feeling, and here's what I'm going to do about it.
Yeah. I think because I think we're not really trained to just sit with emotions, to notice
Yeah.
them and to sit with them and to learn that we can tolerate these difficult emotions.
Hmm.
And so we're constantly escaping, constantly sort of like disconnecting or disattaching or dissociating the moment before or the moment before we perceive we're going to feel that, right? And if we could be with that emotion or that sensation, we might realize that it actually isn't that bad. It might be a
Hmm.
few seconds of discomfort, or it might be the feeling of, you know, some darkness in your chest or like a tingly in your hands or something very, very sensation based. But we don't give ourselves the chance, you know? I think it's yeah, that no one was by our side. Like as a youth, for example, like it's not often that a parent will be with their child or, you know, an educator or some trusted person is going to be like, hey, like what are you actually noticing in your body right now? And, you know,
Hmm.
help them to calibrate, to, you know, help them to stay in their body if it's uncomfortable, to realize that they can be with it. And so we just go about our day, go about our lives, kind of like skipping out on emotions and just kind of
Hmm.
like, you know, we have our addictive patterns and things that we do to numb out and distract, and we're not really focusing on feeling those things until things get like really unmanageable. You know,
Right.
we have something, then we are like, oh man, okay, I need to deal with it. And then the time comes that we're like, oh wow, like I don't, you know, I haven't built the capacity or the skills to be with this thing. Yeah, and then other people can help us to be with those things and to sit with those feelings, like being in you know with a trusted therapist or a friend or someone who can help us to co-regulate and realize that we can be that thing, or to help us to manage like whether we need to, if we could go deeper or if we need to pull back. But yeah, I think it's about learning. It's about learning, and a lot of us just haven't learned.
Yeah, and I love the word that you said about capacity, that we've never done it.
Yeah,
So it's just unfamiliar, and the brain does not like anything unfamiliar. It detects unfamiliar as danger, right? So you're
right.
immediate in that fight or flight situation, and you will do anything to run from that and get away from it because I don't know how to do this. I've never done it before.
Exactly.
It's scary. It's
Hmm.
really scary versus wanting to lean in with some curiosity and find out more. And it's, wouldn't you agree it's never quite as bad as we make it to be in
It
our
is
head?
never, right. It is never as bad as we think it is. Yeah, absolutely.
And so now we've turned one problem into two problems.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, so you've done a great job with turning that around, and your educational background is mind blowing. Mind blowing. I can't imagine that that's all packed into that head of yours. How is there room? It
It's
must
ridiculous. Yeah, no, it's crazy.
you must love learning.
I do. I am a lifelong
Yes,
learner. Yeah,
that's
it's
great.
yeah, I just if there's anything that like catches my interest, I just am like I just I
Yeah.
want to learn it. Yeah.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about ketogenic diet, and that must have sparked your interest, and you must have wanted to learn more. And it sounds like you're leaning into that path. Do you want to talk about how you feel like that actually supports mental and metabolic health for those struggling with food addiction? Real food recovery, we don't tell,
Yeah.
we don't promote anything, but I would love to hear your stance on the ketogenic.
Yeah. And I also want to say I also don't I'm like I'm open, you know. I
Yeah.
feel like my orientation is animal-based carnivore keto, but I work with people of, you know, of various preferences, and I believe that people should do what works for them, you know.
Yeah.
Of
Agree.
course, yeah, some people don't know what works for them, and so that can be like the tricky part is
Yeah,
like, oh, what do I, you know, should I, this person says vegan, this person says carnivore,
right.
this person
Yeah.
says, you know, eat all foods in moderation. So I think that's the
You
tricky part, but
you got to just try it and find out what works for you, right? Because
yeah.
I did keto for a year or two and it was okay. And I did the intermittent fasting. That was not
Hmm.
great, but I love
Hmm.
apples and I don't want to, I need to have my Cosmic Crisp apple. And I have found that for me, just a balanced diet seems to
Hmm.
not, I would say works with my mental is where it works for
Yeah.
me is just upstairs. That's what keeps me
Yeah.
calmest. And for me, that's my goal is calm. So I interrupted you and I didn't mean to do that. So yeah,
Oh,
tell me about your experience.
no, you're good. Yeah, and I exactly that. If someone has found what works for them,
Great.
then amazing. That's what we all want is to just
Right.
find that something works for
Mm-hmm.
them. So I advocate for, or I mean, I believe that carnivore keto is can be helpful for people with food addiction because the brain is usually stuck like in this blood sugar and dopamine roller coaster, and sugar and refined carbs especially can spike you up and they crash you down. And
Yep.
then that can continue to fuel that whole loop with the cravings and loss of control and binging. And so that cycle's reinforced and so on. And so, like having a low carb diet that is full of protein and full of fat, that can help with stabilizing that. You know, the protein, the healthy fats that keeps your blood sugar steady, and that keeps your brain sharp, reduces your insulin spikes. And when your metabolism is stable, then your nervous system can interpret that as calm, as peace. Because when we're having these
Yes.
crazy blood sugar spikes, our nervous system can feel like, man, I'm feeling anxious or I'm feeling cravey. And it's hard to distinguish, right? But when we're having a stable blood sugar, then we might notice there is a diminution of the cravings. You might feel like your mood is improving and you might feel that you're developing more clarity. So then that helps you to make more aligned food choices instead of feeling like your blood sugar is crashing and now you need to reach for more sugar. And it just kind of, that cycle gets reinforced. But if you can eliminate that, then that sort of clears the way to do the work on some of the deeper things, the emotional, the psychological, the spiritual aspects that maybe you weren't, that someone's not capable of doing because they're just stuck in like this sort of biological battle.
I agree with that. I do agree that controlling the blood sugar is monumental in pulling yourself out of this, which is why sticking to the non-processed foods, because if you want a blood sugar roller coaster, hop
Yeah.
on the processed food train, right? And it's nothing but choo choo all day long, right? I mean, you are just pulling in and out of the station all day long with that. You're literally chasing blood sugar all day long. Don't you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
And what I was, as you were talking about that, I was thinking, what if somebody that might be a good place to start for people in the beginning that are trying to get off sugar? And maybe as they get further down in recovery, then they could see if there's other options with more fruit
Hmm.
that they could explore. But I do like the idea of for some people that would be a great place to start if they're really severely at binging. That's not a bad place to start.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. And you explained that really well. Blood sugar balance is just I mean, that's so key
Hmm.
in getting out of the cravings and all of
Hmm.
that. So, you talked a lot about mindfulness, and I want to go back to that and mindfulness for stress, but also mindfulness for eating and body awareness. All of those things play a role together in helping people pull out of these binge cycles. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I think there's a lot of information there that can be shared.
Absolutely. So many times, the binge eating or the addictive patterns, the compulsive grabbing of food, it's actually not about hunger. And, Paige, you know this working with many clients, or maybe people listening who have the
Hmm.
experience on their own, they'll admit, like, I'm actually not hungry. This is not
Right.
about hunger. I mean, sometimes it is, but a lot of
Hmm.
times it has nothing to do with hunger.
Right. What are you really needing?
Yeah, and so a lot of times people are actually disconnected. I mean, that was definitely my experience is disconnection
Hmm.
as my mind and body were disconnected. And in the moment of the binge eating, it's completely disconnected from, from their body, from their awareness, from their higher goals and everything. So people are dissociating, they are, numbing out. It maybe they're like watching the TV and they're binging. They could be scrolling on YouTube or Instagram. I'm guilty. I've been guilty of that. Like basic, or just like they are emotionally flooded, right? And so mindfulness, including mindful eating, including developing interoceptive or somatic awareness within their body, that can help a person to retrain someone or to train someone for the first time to actually notice early signals. It could be early signals of urges to binge. It could be tension that's in their body that they hadn't noticed. It could be other things going on, and loneliness, fatigue, or whatever is going on, but they hadn't noticed it, so they end up going for the binge, right? But if you can start to develop awareness early of what you're feeling, you could maybe stop it before the binge because you can take care of yourself appropriately because you're training yourself to discriminate between different body sensations.
Hmm.
And that's important because when you know exactly what you're feeling or approximately what you're feeling, you can give yourself good care for that, right? So
Hmm.
instead of being like, I'm feeling something and I'm definitely going to eat over it, which is what can happen, right? Instead,
Hmm.
you can be like, I'm hungry. Okay, that deserves food. Okay, I'm thirsty. That deserves, water. I'm stressed. That deserves some, management with the stress, talking with a friend or preparing for something or like taking something, off my plate to get rid of that stress or, whatever different things that you have going on, you can respond to them appropriately if you know what that is.
Hmm.
Um, and so when you're in your body, you can notice what's actually happening instead of this like knee-jerk reaction, which is what happens oftentimes with binge eating or challenges with our eating. And that mindful awareness is where we can give ourselves the opportunity to pause and to give ourselves a choice and research has shown time and time and again that mindful eating and improvement in interoceptive awareness can reduce binge eating um, by changing the relationship someone has to the food and the cravings and the emotions so that we can notice things, become less attached, and, making a deliberate choice instead of just acting on autopilot.
Right. And don't you think it comes down to just asking yourself, what am I really needing right now? If food weren't an option, what's really bugging me? Is it loneliness? Is it tired? Is it stress? What really is it? And just tuning into our bodies a little bit more instead of have the thought, make an action. And you're missing, there's a step in there that shut off that we're
Right.
skipping over. And
Yeah, I
and
think
we think we're solving the problem when we're actually, again, creating more of a problem.
Exactly. It's exactly right. I love the way of conceptualizing it. It's like instead of actually dealing with the thing, we're now not only not dealing with the thing, but we are now adding more crap on top of it because then we're adding a binge or whatever that is. And so then
Yeah.
it's like we're adding layers of shame, disconnection, uh, regret, physical discomfort, all these other things. And I think what you said, the question of like, what is it that I really need? I think that could help. I think the important part about that is the pause, like just giving yourself the
Yes.
pause and just being,
Yes.
hey, like tuning into yourself and pausing. And maybe the question is, what is it that I really need? Or maybe it's another question, but the important part is giving is that attention to oneself and pausing.
Yeah. No, I love that's huge. I mean, that's the critical, it's impulse control,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think those two words are interchangeable, pause and impulse control. And once you can master impulse control, man, you've got this.
Mm-hmm.
That's big. Let's talk in that vein. Usually we're activated when these cravings are coming up. And so there is a lot of conversation around nervous system regulation right now, which I love because I've heard people say, is it really nervous system regulation we need to focus on, or is it actually food addiction? Which one is it? If we solve the one, would we actually have food addiction? So do you want to address nervous system regulation? You want to like tell people what it is and what you do about that and how you calm yourself down when you're starting to feel activated?
Yeah, so nervous system dysregulation can, take many forms. It can feel like, yeah, you're not really um, integrated into your sensorial experience. It can feel like anxiety. It can feel like
Hmm.
stress, and arguably having these cravings is a form of nervous system
Right.
dysregulation. And so I noticed for me, as I mentioned earlier, when I started getting into more body-based supports for cravings, that was a lot more helpful because I would say traditional approaches to craving management is cognitive, like for example, hey, if you're feeling a craving, like focus on your actual goals or tell yourself that that food is not serving you. Like,
Hmm.
um, remember that you're gonna feel like crap if you eat this or
Yeah.
if you binge or something. Or it could be like urge surfing, where it's like, okay, just keep in your head and know that this urge will rise and then it'll pass and it'll go on its own. So like just know that this is going to pass. So like, don't worry about it.
Hmm.
Like, so all these things are very cognitive, right? And so
Hmm.
that wasn't really helping me because the cravings to me felt so strong. It felt like
Right.
a very visceral, overwhelming sort of sensation where I
Hmm.
was actually losing my ability to access these cognitive resources. In the moment of an urge, I'm like, I'm not remembering all these things that I'm supposed to remember. I just felt like this was something was taking over me, right? So now I actually recommend doing things to regulate the nervous system, like sensory strategies. I recommend doing them not, and ideally not when they're at the place of being overwhelming, because my research has shown that the higher sort of intensity is what I call it, the intensity of the craving, the higher that is, the less sort of influential these sensory strategies are, and the more likely it is that you actually will end up binging. And I think anyone listening
Ah,
might be like, that makes sense because if you're like at a 10 out of 10, like doing some sort of body tapping ain't gonna cut it, like you're gone, right? But
you
if
are
you
gone. You literally blood flow. If you, I don't know if you want to say about that, but you literally, when she says you're gone, the blood flow to that frontal lobe is like out of here.
exactly, and that's why cognitive strategies are less effective, in my opinion, because we are literally not getting, we are more we're more body-based at that time. We don't have access to our cognitive resources.
Yeah.
And so I recommend doing sensory strategies more, as soon as possible, which is why I was telling you, I really believe that someone improving their interoceptive awareness can really help them because then they can start to be like, oh, I'm starting to feel like the whisper of a craving, and they can
Hmm.
start implementing strategies from there as opposed to
Hmm.
someone who doesn't have that level of body awareness and they're not realizing they experience an urge until it's a 10 out of 10. So that's going
Yeah.
to be tough. So if someone can start to recognize what cravings feel like in their bodies early for them, because for each person it's going to feel different what a craving
Yeah.
feels like. So if they can start to develop that awareness and then earlier do some strategies, that is helpful. So for example, I think changing the environment is a good one. You know, if you're just kind of like in your house. If you can get out, go for a walk. If you can meet a friend, going for a run can be even more powerful. Getting your heart rate up. That's if that works for your body. I mean, I'm not a big runner. That would hurt my ankles and knees. But if someone can run, that would be good. I'm also like a big proponent of shaking my body, like just shaking, shaking, like
You-
bouncing
Like,
up and down, shaking
like
my hands.
dogs do. When dogs
Exactly.
get have thing, they just, shake it off.
Exactly. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
acting like a dog,
Mm-hmm.
shaking it off. Um, I like to do squats or like, squats, reaching my hands up and like breathing, push-ups, anything. Those all are engaging the proprioceptive sense. So that to me has been really helpful. I also like squeezing my body.
Oh, I
Um,
like that.
that kind of to me helps me to be like, I'm here because for me, the pull of the binge was very dissociative. And so to me to like squeeze my own body was like, I'm here. Like I'm here right now. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, splashing cold water on your face. These are all the type of things that can help someone stay in their body. And I recommend doing these things, like I said, on the earlier side if possible. But and I think that the earlier you catch the craving or the sensation and managing it, you can have a little bit more subtle strategies. So instead of like running and tapping your body and splashing cold water in your face, that's maybe not necessary if you are finding yourself more at like a 1 or a 2 out of 10, like I'm noticing something, like maybe it's time I'll go for a walk and call a friend,
Yeah.
but if
Oh,
something
yeah.
does feel like it's a higher intensity, then that's when someone might want to engage in these more intense types of sensory strategies, because they're going to need something a little more heavy duty.
Yeah. Oh, those are great. Those are all very, very helpful. I love that. And I see you as someone who would be perfecting these skills along with education. And so I didn't know if you suffer from perfectionism since we're not robots. It's pretty difficult to be perfect all the time. And
Hmm.
so, whenever you have like a sidestep, and maybe you don't have those anymore, maybe you're far enough along where that's not ever a problem, but what would you tell the people when these sidesteps or binges do happen? How do you advise people to get back on track and find compassion for those moments where we are human and life gets lifey?
That's a great question. And I absolutely do still need to show myself compassion. I don't feel like I'm always in perfect alignment. I definitely have side steps. And I think one thing for us all to be aware of is, especially when we're talking about binge eating recovery and food addiction, is the abstinence violation effect. So maybe you've heard of it, Paige, maybe some of your viewers or your listeners haven't. And that's where if you say just like, okay, one thing you know, like that hadn't planned happened. And so everything is gonna go to crap now. So like, oh, I ate this thing and I didn't know that it had sugar in it. And then I realized later it had sugar in it. And then,
Yeah.
oh, well, I ate sugar. So now I should definitely go to the store and buy like all the things that that I shouldn't be eating right now or
Yeah.
something. So like
Hmm.
using one small thing to turn into a binge, that is the abstinence violation effect. And I think the counter to that is flexibility and compassion, basically getting curious instead of critical. So if someone has a sidestep or a slip or whatever you want to call it, then I invite them to reflect on certain questions, including, what were the vulnerabilities that occurred before the slip or the binge, right? So
Hmm.
were you on your phone really late and then you weren't getting good sleep? Was it had you hadn't prepped any food and so maybe you were just like eating whatever there was and then you ended up getting something that didn't, wasn't in line and then you're just like, I'm gonna go off the rails now? Or did you have a fight with your partner? Like just to get curious, like, okay, what were the vulnerabilities? And then an important follow-up to that is what could we possibly do differently next time? So a lot of times the vulnerabilities that we experience come again, you know? So if someone's on
Yes.
their phone late and they stay up and they're tired the next day, it could be that the next day they do the same thing and the same thing because they're in the habit of being on their phone late at night, not practicing proper sleep hygiene, or if they have stress at work, that is also a vulnerability that can come up. Like a lot of the
Yes.
things that we are have vulnerability around in our lives, is something that we can take a proactive approach and be like, okay, what can we do about it? And if this comes around, because it might, then what might we do differently? And so then we can, give ourselves proactive support, think about how we can change things up, stop, being like, hey, I'm not going to bring my phone into bed. I'm putting my phone away at a certain time. But we can take proactive strategies. And then another follow-up question to that is how can you, the person who did that, how can you show yourself love, care, and compassion right now? Because a lot of times when we sidestep or slip or binge or relapse or whatever you want to call it, it's like um they're really hard on themselves. They're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
like I'm a failure, I messed this up, like why am I what's wrong with me? And it can just exacerbate. And so instead of being like a tiny little blip, then it leads to another binge and another and another. And next thing you know, it's a month in the ditch. Whereas if someone
Yeah.
has a slight deviation, but they can immediately get curious about, what were some of the vulnerabilities, what might they do differently next time, and how can they show themselves care, love, and compassion right now, it can just moving forward and then they just resume right on track, right? So it turns shame into data. So it's like we're never failing, we're always learning. When we can look at what happened, it becomes a learning opportunity that can actually support our recovery. So
Totally.
yeah, so we can get curious. We have forward movement instead of, staying stuck. And it's really about giving ourselves a grace and being present to look at what happened instead of like being like, I don't want to, I don't want to look at it. Like it's just so shameful. It's so bad. And
Yeah.
like, not using that as data, but when we can actually turn to it, sort of like, I don't know what is, I can't remember the name of it, like a forensic reporter, something like
Yeah.
a
You're
pathological,
sleuthing.
yeah, sleuthing and kind of like be like, hey, what can I learn from that?
Yeah.
Um, then that's a way to actually support our recovery.
I love the curiosity approach. In fact, I think it's really the only answer to that when there are sidesteps. Curiosity, it it did not kill the cat.
Yeah.
It saved people from lifelong patterns that they're trying to break, which I love. Do you feel like there are like number one I'll just start out with you, for example. Do you think there are number one non-negotiables that you have to avoid these triggering things? Is there one thing that you like, I make sure that this is in place in my life? Maybe you can give me three if you want, but if you have some standouts that these, in order to stay clean and to stay living a life that I want to live, I make sure for food prep for me is my number one. That
Hmm.
that keeps me on the straight and narrow more than anything else. And I didn't know if you had a standout in your life that does that for you.
Yeah, I feel like for me, there's a few things that are really the basis of my health and wellness, no matter if I'm traveling or not. And these help keep me well. And I'd say firstly is including protein. So yeah, I like steak, but for example, I just got back from some travel where there was no steak available, if you can believe it. And
Oh,
so I had eggs, I had chicken, I had fish,
yeah.
there was other protein. So just that felt like, okay, that is enough, so just protein. So having some protein is really helpful to me. And movement is super, super helpful to me. It's
Yes.
like a foundation of my life. It's very stabilizing.
Agree.
And so, yeah, doing some movement, and I prefer the gym. But again, in certain circumstances, for example, where I was just traveling, there was not a gym, but I was able to do other types of movement. So when I don't have access to a gym, maybe I'll do body weight exercise or I'll do stretching, mobility, walking, something, but there's always going to be some sort of movement. And then I always get morning light. One of the first things I
Oh, I
do in
love
the
that.
morning, I get morning light, even if it's just, going out and doing a few stretches or some breathing or some gratitude or a little walk. But I really try to get morning light. And then I'd say lastly is really prioritizing sleep. I'm a total old lady, even
Oh,
though
me too.
I'm 43, but I'm going on 82. And like I go to bed at like crazy. Like this past week, I swear to you, I've been going to bed at like 7:30 p.m. But it feels so good, you
And
know?
it does. And I'm
So
sure you're an early riser too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like to say that I'm president of the Fuddy Duddy Club, and I'm a proud badge wearing member because 8:30 is like I that's my goal to be asleep. At 9 is like I'm a gypsy pushing the
Yeah.
boundaries of life.
Same.
So I tell my clients the day starts the night before.
Yes.
So if you want your day to go well, you got to start thinking about it the evening before. And my food is prepped. I kind of do a checklist of the next day. So I have things in place. I do not fly by the seat of my pants. And yeah, I've got my food ready to just literally pull out during the day when I need it. And I cannot tell you how often that saves me, not only physically, but mentally too, just
Right.
knowing that it's there. It's not a distraction. I
Yeah.
can accomplish so much more with that done and just doing several meals in one chunk. It's a time saver too.
Yeah.
So, and all those things. So I'm grounded in the morning with my spirituality, and then it's straight out the door to exercise. I've had my clean breakfast. So all of those things. So I've had my food, my sleep, my movement, and spirituality all are how my foundation of the day starts. And if it don't, then
Yeah.
I'm off kilter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am off kilter and I like the good feels that come from that. I like patterns. Our brain are kind of a copy and paste machine and it
Yes.
likes patterns too. So anyway, I got a little sidetracked there. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have are developing retreats. So do you want to take the last few minutes and talk about those? And we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I'm super excited. I've been fantasizing a lot about these retreats. They are in the works, and it's based off of my personal experience of like wanting to do retreats,
Yeah.
but then being like, a lot of them are like vegan or vegetarian, and it's like for me, my recovery, as I've mentioned to you, I feel like my recovery is based in my nutrition that is largely animal-based carnivore. And so it felt like I had to do either or. It's like either I'm going to
Ah,
this retreat, learning
mhm.
something cool, engaging this like transformative experience, or I'm going to eat in a way that supports my recovery. And it just felt like a challenge. So there's so many times I'm like, oh, I would love to do that, but I'm not going to because I really don't want to spend 7 or 10 days or whatever eating vegan or vegetarian food. And I recently did a yoga teacher training,
Mhm.
and I saw many, many different retreats, many, teacher training opportunities, but the majority, I'll say 99% of them were vegan or vegetarian. And so that felt like, a challenge for me. I'm like, wait, why? I want to do this program, but like I don't want to eat vegan or vegetarian. And I ended up choosing a program partly because they offered protein. I was like, thank goodness. And I feel like I want to offer that experience to other people who may be in the same boat. Like they want to do cool things. They want to do yoga. They want to do, have great transformational retreat experiences, but they don't want to sacrifice the food that they would normally eat. And so
Right.
it would be a retreat center that offers animal-based foods, and
Ah,
I would want to offer, I would want to rent it out to people when I wouldn't be doing my retreats. As far as the retreats that I would offer, I would want to do one that is focused on metabolic therapy or like ketogenic therapy, because I do believe that for many people with food addiction and binge eating a lot, or other mental health issues, or just anyone who wants to feel better, that could be improved through metabolic therapy. However, it can be intimidating at first if someone's never done it. They're like, how do I do it? And even just in general, being a meal prepper, I mean, I'm sure you know, Paige, and working with all your clients, it's hard for some people who don't have the habit to
mm-hmm.
know what to eat, to go to the store, to cook it, to prep it, to weigh it, whatever, to clean it. Oh, it's a thing. But like I would like to offer that experience for people to come to the retreat center and it's all done for you. You don't have
Yeah.
to clean a dish. You don't need to go to the grocery store. You don't need to do anything. You just show up.
Ah,
And
that's
so then
funny.
after they get that experience and feeling it in their body, then maybe they're inspired to continue that at
Yeah,
home.
right.
So yeah, so a metabolic therapy retreat, and then a second retreat would be essentially mindful eating and mindful movement. That is animal based because there's not really mindful eating retreats, but there are some retreats that have like Tai Chi or Qigong. There's not a lot, but there are some, but most of them are vegan and vegetarian. So this would be an opportunity for someone who's animal based to be able to experience that. And thirdly, a yoga retreat for carnivores because again, most yoga retreats are vegan or vegetarian. And so this would
Mm-hmm.
be someone who wants to eat meat and do yoga at the same time. So I am
Nice.
super, super excited about these ideas. So if anyone
Nice.
listening or watching is interested in these things, please email me at info@beyondbingeeating.com and let me know you're interested because yeah, this is super exciting.
Well, and I was going to ask you if you want to tell people where they can find you. Is that the best place to find you?
So, I have different venues to be found. So I do have a YouTube channel. It's called Beyond Binge Eating. I'm also on Instagram called Beyond Binge Eating, and my website, well, surprise, it's called Beyond Binge Eating, www.beyondbingeeating.com. And on there, I have some free resources. If there's a free resource tab where people can get some freebies. There's also an offerings tab, and in the offerings, they can find meditations, tools for managing urges to binge. There is a self-paced course regarding mindful eating and living in abstinence-based food recovery called Conscious Bites. And then there's other courses there that people can check out. Again, if they're interested, please like just take a look-see over there. And if they're interested, just email me info@beyondbingeeating.com. And also if they sign up to my newsletter, then they'll be informed about different workshops and things that are coming up.
Beautiful. If I could ask you one last question, even thinking back to that 12-year-old girl,
Yeah.
what's the first step? Where do people begin when they know there's an issue? If people are struggling to even get started, where do you start?
Hmm. Hmm. I think that's a really good question. Also a difficult question. There's so many ways that this could be taken. Um, I'm going to answer with two things. One is just starting to notice, is there anything that makes things better? Right? So
Oh, I
starting
love
to build
that.
the awareness of like
Awareness is, I think that's
awareness.
always the first step. Yeah.
Exactly. Awareness. So bringing awareness, is there anything that starts to make things better? Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
then that can kind of be an indication, where do we go from here? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then a second thing that I think is similar is starting to just take maybe a few minutes with food eating without distraction. because that can
Oh,
also
that's
be
great
start
too.
to be like a sort of pattern interrupt because
Sure.
a lot of times with binge eating and compulsive eating and these addictive patterns with food, we're eating like just disconnected and we're not aware. But if we can even take one moment to put the phone away, like
Yeah.
just a few bites undistracted, then we can start to practice, ingraining a new pattern, which is eating with presence instead of
Yeah.
eating as escape.
Yeah.
So I think that can be really illuminating as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. This hour has flown by. Oh my gosh, this was beautiful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And if you want to find out more about us, you can find us at realfoodrecovery4u.com. That's the number 4 and the letter U. And our book, Real Food Recovery, If Food Isn't the Answer, What's the Question, is available on Amazon today. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.